Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of your six-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, July 17th. The LA Galaxy with a tepid, quiet, rolled-over loss to Austin FC on Wednesday night. It was just last night. If you don't feel the tiredness already within you, staying up to watch a game in which only effort was poured into probably the last or second half, then you were missing something. Only 16,272 people at the game for a Wednesday night, about 3,000 light on that. We're going to talk about the Austin game today, and then, of course, get you turning and burning towards that LAFC game. El Trafico coming up this weekend on Saturday night. So I'm solo tonight. The Hammer has the night off. Sophie has the night off. All the co-hosts are busy and having a good night off. So figured I'd come on here and give you guys a little brief update of everything that is going on with the LA Galaxy right now. And unfortunately, we have to start with the game against Austin. This was a game billed by me, perhaps, billed by others, as a chance for the LA Galaxy to get, quote-unquote, back into this season, right? A win would have basically kept Austin, who had the 9th spot in the playoffs, from trying to escape or climb up that ladder and hopefully hold that number. And even if Austin would have lost, by the way, the Galaxy would have only picked up 1 point. But we were talking about, hey, 9 points and 11 games left is something that, is, while almost completely outside the realm of possibility. The 14 points in 11 games now is something that's going to be much harder to get. So the idea was to go at Austin, knowing it's a Western Conference game, knowing that a win there could have possibly provided you with a point, right? And got you a little bit closer to a goal that you were trying to get. It also would have climbed you out of the basement a little bit in terms of, the Western Conference would have been tied on points with St. Louis, right? So there were lots of incentives to come out and really go after this game. Midweek game, and I don't think we should underestimate that, because certainly that was something that was talked about afterwards, that the midweek game is difficult right now. Guys a little tired, all that stuff, but if you're the LA Galaxy, it's your third straight game at home. You have the advantage in this. It's something that you needed to take advantage of. So what we saw instead on a Wednesday night was a library-like atmosphere at the stadium, supporters groups protesting, and if you, I was sitting down talking to some of the reporters that were there, and I said, this reminds me of a COVID game. If you remember when they had reduced capacity and all that sort of stuff, it was pretty chill in there. It was a late arriving, as you'd expect on a Wednesday night game, but still at 16,000, you probably figured that there were at least 3,000 or 4,000 people maybe that weren't there in terms of the tickets and all the things that are supposed to be sort of counted and distributed, because this ticket is distributed. And so it was a pretty light crowd. It was light on energy, and so were the LA Galaxy. And I don't think you can disconnect the two. And that's not throwing blame anywhere. I just don't think you can disconnect the two. The Galaxy came out flat. The Galaxy looked like they were devoid of energy. The crowd felt like it was devoid of energy, although the booing certainly helped, and there was lots of booing in this game for we'll call it a not well-managed game. outside of that, it was a bit of a surreal, place to watch a soccer game. And here's the LA Galaxy trying to make it within single digits to get to that last playoff spot. And you expected more energy, and you certainly expected more energy from the LA Galaxy than you did from Austin, who had to travel for this game. That being said, Austin now has beat the LA Galaxy in 2 consecutive games. Back-to-back both this year. So they've won that series. The Galaxy took exactly 0 points from Austin this year. And listen, that's a pretty common thing when you only have 3 wins on the entire year. Perhaps there was some, and I'll be guilty of this, but perhaps there was some understanding that you thought that the LA Galaxy were a little better than they were. Here's the thing going into El Trafico, and I think I've sort of complained about, you have to play one game at a time, but when you look at the 3 home games, you really wanted to win all 3 home games and one game at a time. I don't know if the LA Galaxy started to look to the weekend, but it certainly didn't feel like they were paying attention in that first half. Let's put it that way. But the game started weird. You have to remember that they started playing, and then all of a sudden everything stopped. Players were holding the match balls, and they were squeezing them, and you're like, oh, they think that they don't have enough air in them, but we didn't know what it was, and nobody was telling us. And if you were in the stadium or at home, or if you were in the press box, we had no idea sort of what was going on, because you would think if one ball was low that there would have been another one and another one and another one, and you could have eventually found one that suited everybody's interest. But both teams apparently were saying that it was both teams were saying that the balls were at least not inflated the way that they wanted to. Now, according to Greg Vanny afterwards, because I asked about it, I go, what was the exact complaint? And he said, they thought that they weren't pumped up enough. I think IFAB rules go all the way from like 8.9 to all the way up to 15 pounds. And according to Greg, he said it was at 14 pounds. So very much within the realm of, yes, it was. Everything looked good. So, but that what did that add? 4-5 minutes onto the game, and all of a sudden it stopped. The game gets played again. Edwin Cerrillo gets a yellow card immediately. A bit of a soft yellow, but from this referee who was wholly inconsistent the entire night, and people had no idea what fouls were, and were sort of staring around each other. If you look at the balance of it, it was probably one of the easier calls that he made on the night, because some of the other yellow cards, you just sort of were sitting there scratching your head. So a weird start to the game, and we should call it a weird game overall, whether it's the atmosphere, whether it was the way it started with the deflate gate balls there. I was making a joke. It's like Tom Brady around here, deflating balls again. So that got underway. You start to then try to progress into this game. Cerrillo gets a yellow card. That chops things up really fast. And then Miki Amani gets a yellow card almost immediately after that. All of a sudden, things have gone from basically this was a game where everybody was, looking forward to the Galaxy playing Austin FC. All of a sudden now you're dreading being on the field. And it looked like the Galaxy were sort of dreading being on the field. For his start, or for his part, Greg Vanny said, on the start to the game, he says it's a weird start. The game sort of lacked intensity in the early part. With the stop-start, all the players were complaining, so if you will, stopping because they felt like the balls were flat, they weren't firm enough. I'll skip down. He said that they tried several, and I think the end result was that they actually just, ended up playing with the balls that they had there. So he was sort of looking at that. He goes, but the bottom line is that the intensity didn't start to show until really the second half. And how many times have we seen the LA Galaxy start slow or start half slow? I think Greg's take on it was that if the team was tired, and he goes, certainly it's going to be tired. They're going to be tired. We're going to be tired because it's a midweek game. You already played on the weekend. All those things are true. He goes, you can work through that, but you can't give up soft goals for that. And unfortunately for the LA Galaxy, that's really where it came down. Only one change in the lineup for Greg Vanny. Maybe it's a big one. Zonka comes in for Amiro Garces. Now, Vanny was asked about that and was talking about how Amiro Garces was on yellow card warning and all the other things that sort of go along with that. And they certainly knew that they would need Amiro Garces whenever they play LAFC and El Trafico. Knowing that Belonga is going to be on that side and all those things. So Amiro Garces was very much sat on the bench because they wanted to make sure he was available for LAFC. I don't have a problem with it, except that winning against Austin was maybe a bigger priority right now. Winning your home games was maybe a bigger priority, but trying to do everything that you need to do to win both games, or at least be competitive in both games, can work sometimes. it's always that balance of how you can do that, right? So bringing Zonka in here with Yoshida, we know that whenever that happens, that the middle tends to look a little slow, right? And we know that Amiro Garces provides the energy in the middle of that defense, and Maya Yoshida plays better whenever Amiro Garces is next to him most of the time. And so whenever you put Zonka in there and you pair him with Yoshida, that things are going to be a little bit slow in there. Julian Aude started on the left-hand side, but didn't make it forever because he ended up getting absolutely clobbered. Let's take a step back from everything lineup-wise. Novak Mitrovic in there, Miki Amane, Maya Yoshida, Zonka, and Aude. That's your back line. Marco Reus, Cerrillo, and Diego Fagundes. You have Joseph Painsil, Mateus Nascimento up top, and then, of course, Gabriel Peck on that right-hand side. So that is your lineup. And again, not unexpected, but seeing Zonka in there, you knew that there was going to be an opportunity at least for Austin to exploit more that center of the pitch there. And so I think that's what we saw in this game. You saw Maya Yoshida sort of being up there and working next to Aude sometimes, certainly on the first goal that we can look at coming in the 40th minute. It's the LA Galaxy getting soft. Edwin Cerrillo, who's on a yellow card, gets wrong-sided on his defender. Now he's trying to chase and not foul. So he's in a bad position. Diego Fagundes doesn't have enough time to sort of come over and close off his guy without leaving some other guys open. So then the ball gets slotted in because there's time between Maya Yoshida and John Nelson, who had, recently come in after you saw that Julian Aude had that injury in the 38th minute, right? So just 2 minutes later on that same side is where you end up getting the goal coming for it, with Azuni scoring that goal, making it 1-0 in the 40th minute. Now, we ended up playing a bunch of extra added time in that as well. But the bottom line is that without that switch, without Julian Aude getting injured, without that big collision, which one of several big collisions and one that probably should have warranted yellow cards that didn't get yellow cards. And again, there were plenty of yellow cards in this game. Both coaches ended up getting yellow carded because the referee was completely out of his sorts. Like, everybody was complaining, both sides. Referee's bad whenever both teams are complaining constantly. Austin ended up with 4 yellow cards. The Galaxy ended up with 2. Each coach got a yellow card in there as well. But the fouls were all over the place. This game got overly physical, which we expected it to because these teams always play that way. So we look at that and say, was it expected? Was it unexpected? I'll tell you right now, it was unexpected for the Galaxy to come out that flat, that soft, in a position that they were in, knowing that Austin was so clearly points for them to be made up. The game this weekend, El Trafico, while it's true that form has never mattered in these games, right? And so you could take that. But the game this weekend, less important than the game against Austin on Wednesday night, and if you're trying to make up ground. LAFC is already above the playoff line. They're well above it, right? So that's not something that you're trying to do. Hey, if you get some points from that, that's great. But you're going to have to now try to steal points on the road. It gets a lot more complicated. The more important game was this Austin game. This was an Austin team that, as somebody in the chat room said, scored 15 goals all year, and they put 2 in on the LA Galaxy, right? Too much space. And then we can even talk about the second goal, although it'll just make people angry. That second goal ends up happening because you have Zonka, who's trying to shield the ball as Novak Mitrovic comes out. Zonka, if you're going to shield the ball, then shield the ball, because he let his attacker go right around him. There was a toe poke around him, and then, just calamitous. Maya Yoshida, if you see Maya Yoshida's head after that, shaking his head, being all angry, he's embarrassed. That was an embarrassing second goal, 100%. And that's just lack of awareness and lack of physical presence from Zonka, because he's the one who has to. If you're going to guard that position, then make sure you follow your guy whenever he's trying to go around you, instead of just waiting for Novak to come in. And by the way, Novak, that's a position I doubt that John McCarthy gets in. Maybe that's fair, maybe that's not fair, but it felt like Mitrovic didn't know if he was supposed to come out or not. That there was uncertainty in that. And when there's uncertainty in the penalty box, all it takes is one of 3 players who ended up being around it to launch it out. So, there's plenty in this game to talk about. Quite honestly, there's an Austin fan in here was talking about how Cerrillo probably should have been sent off. Cerrillo had like 3 fouls that he probably could have gotten sent off for the second time. So I agree. I think Cerrillo was reckless early, although the first one is a borderline yellow card for me, and that's soft to call it in the 3rd minute. But did he have 2 other ones there? There's a punch that certainly, and we did launch a pool reporter questions on both of these. I can actually try to bring those up for you guys so we can talk about it. But Cerrillo, yeah, he didn't have a good game, and then he put himself in a bad position. He's on a yellow card, and he becomes way less effective. Greg Vanney said it absolutely affected things. There's a handball that doesn't get called in the 55th minute that absolutely is a handball. The referees are going to tell you that, oh, no, it wasn't. It was, it went off his leg first and blah, blah, blah. If the ball's going through your legs and your hand stops the ball from going through your legs, that's called a handball. And so, I know we've been guessing about whether or not the arm was all the way down. And apparently, if you're going to fall down, you can fall down and just grab the ball. We saw that in the Gold Cup. But the bottom line is that there were missed calls all over the place. None of those, in my opinion, had an effect on this match because it was horrible in so many different directions. Right? So go back and look at this. The crazy stat to me, and we can do the math on this before we get too crazy about it. But look at this. Austin had 1.4 in terms of XG. Okay, cool. That makes sense. They had some chances. They scored 2 goals. That's fine. The Galaxy had 2.0. Well, one of those is a penalty kick. Let's take 0.7 away from that. We get 1.3. 1.3 to 1.4 in terms of open play. Probably fair. How many times did Gabriel Peck miss the target? How many times did it go around the corner? Gabriel Peck hits ones off the inside of the post and somehow it doesn't go in, right? We saw things in this game where the Galaxy had plenty of open chances to win this game, even to tie this game. And as is 2025, none of those chances fell. Not a single one. Joseph Paintsel looks like a shell of himself. I watched that game, and I can't get excited about Joseph Paintsel right now. And by the way, because of the goal, he was the top player on the LA Galaxy at 8.5, 8.6. Okay, cool. Go look at the entire Austin team all in green. The Galaxy played so poorly, and I really think this is a reflection of that. They made Austin look really good in this game. 8.2 for Wolf, 7.3 for Pereira. Bukhari at 7.6. Stuver at 7.2. Stuver had a couple good saves, but I don't think there was anything that looked like it was going in the back of the net that he, kept out. There was a lot of stuff hit at him, even if it was hit hard. So we're looking at, this craziness that comes in where you can look at somebody like Gabriel Peck, who had 16 goals and 14 assists. Yes, certainly some of that is due to Ricky Puig. He has 3 goals and 3 assists so far this year. He had, 6 chances on Wednesday night and didn't convert a single one? I don't think that's Ricky Puig's fault. Joseph Paintsel, 4 goals and 1 assist. He scores a goal in this game, gets a penalty kick converts the penalty kick. Drew the penalty kick as well. Borderline penalty kick, you're not going to overturn it. There was a lot of jersey being held and a lot of twisting to do it. So Joseph Paintsel finally gets to draw his penalty kick there. Made the rest of the game interesting, but, too late. Too late for all of this. But, he had Joseph Paintsel had 10 goals and 10 assists last year, 4 goals and 1 assist so far. These are the guys that the LA Galaxy needed to rely on. And in most cases with Gabriel Peck and Joseph Paintsel, you haven't been able to rely on them to do anything except either dribble the ball out of bounds or shoot it over the bar. Joseph Paintsel did not have a good game. I didn't see, there wasn't a lot in this game where you're sitting there going, oh, that was great. Marco Royce was pretty quiet. I thought that Austin controlled the midfield. And by the way, if you're going to talk about controlling the midfield, wait till you get to El Trafico on Saturday night. The LAFC is going to boss the midfield way better than the LA Galaxy have been able to do so far this year. If they can isolate Royce and keep him from connecting with different players, there you're going to see, sort of what can happen. Diego Fagundes, I thought, played pretty well. He's been solid for most of this year. I know people love to give him crap, but his rankings are usually in the high 6s and the low 7s. And has been. Marco Royce at 6'6". Austin did a good job of cutting out passes to him, making sure he didn't have service. Nascimento started... At one point in this season, we saw Nascimento come in and start connecting and start building and doing things. If you saw Greg Vanney on the sideline screaming at Nascimento in this game, I can tell you right now, he was not happy with how the link-up played. Nascimento was failing to come back and sort of create those link-up opportunities when the Galaxy would start to break out, which if you don't have the ability to play the ball down the center to Nascimento and then have him distribute back and then out to the wings, then just playing straight up the wings can get very predictable, and that's what the Galaxy looked like. It looked like they were predictable. So Nascimento playing in that position, trying to draw, some chances. You were hopeful that there would be more from him. He did have one of the more audacious shots where a cross came in from the right-hand side, and he was able to sort of put that little back heel spin on it. And it went 7 yards wide, right? We were talking about this at halftime, but it went 7 yards wide. And every one of us could say that almost went in, right? It was one of those where he was like, he almost turned that enough to get it there. But that was that his sole best chance on the night? There was a couple passes where he played intricately inside. I mean, in the second half, the Galaxy started to step it up. That's where you saw the chances come in. But when you look at everything on the balance, you can't tell me that the LA Galaxy were the better team on the night. They weren't. And even if the XG says that they are 2.0 to 1.4, maybe they somebody should have scored another goal in this game. The Galaxy had it in them, but you never had the confidence. I never had the confidence. I don't know anybody had the confidence that they were actually going to put it in. So the disappointment that comes with this is that the LA Galaxy really put themselves in a horror. I mean, they've been in a horrible position. There was a little glimmer of hope, right? If they keep winning, the hope stays there. Greg Vanny talked about, we had a little bit of confidence. We had a little bit of a momentum. And then, you sort of just let it go. I asked Greg how a game in July, I said, a game in July shouldn't have this much riding on it, right? But this is sort of the situation that you guys put yourself in, and then you get this result in it, right? This was a very big game. Again, we prefaced it at the beginning. This was a big game for the LA Galaxy. It was an opponent that they should have been able to beat. It was an Austin side that had scored a total of 15 goals and scored 2 goals on them, right? So Austin was coming in. They have a goal differential, by the way. Austin has a goal differential of -7, right? So they've given up 24 goals and 17 goals against, and they still have, 30 points in this season, right? Again, the Galaxy have half that number of points. The Galaxy are 14 points now from that final playoff spot and 11 games to go. The math starts mathing pretty hard, right? Like it's not hard to figure out that the Galaxy are, they're in their life preservers now, right? And I don't see a way out of this. You can win games. Beating LAFC on Saturday night would certainly go a long way to restoring confidence. I don't know if it helps you overall in the points. And we're just not seeing enough offense from the LA Galaxy. We can look at the defense, and those defenses, they're soft, they're stupid mistakes. But look at all the shots. Go back and you can't even watch it in the highlights because they pull so many of the chances away because they're just, they were just little half chances and stuff like that. But go back and watch some of those half chances on this because I thought the Galaxy had plenty of chances to do it. Special shout out, by the way, to Christian Miles, who was a former co-host here on Corner of the Galaxy. And Christian was the play-by-play announcer for Apple with the wonderful and talented former U.S. women's national team player, former Olympic player, Lori Lindsay was in there as well. I got to say hi to Christian. I got to meet Lori before the game, and 2 more wonderful people you never meet. They're awesome. I know Joe was on the call as well, so all is good there. But yeah, unfortunate for Christian. I was like, hey, they finally gave you a game, right in your backyard, and he was all excited about it, just to sort of be able to be that close, and be able to come down for a game, and then they got that game. So the Galaxy, atrocious in the end. I saw this one number on here I would just like to point out, and I don't know where this is coming from, but looking at the LA Galaxy's crosses again, just 3 crosses. Nascimento starved for service. When are they going to get anything remotely indicating that this offense is firing? Because plenty of chances, plenty of time, plenty of balls dribbled out of bounds, plenty of shots blasted into row Z. All those things were possible. this was a bit of a pathetic rollover by the Galaxy in a chance that they really had. It's 7 shots off target, 4 shots on target, 1 goal. The only other best chance is when Peck hits it off the inside of the post, and for some reason it stays out. That's very 2025. So Harry says, crosses to who? It's not Cemento. That's who. Just like Dejan Jovalic. Just like the Galaxy used to build through him. Just like they used to cross to him. Just like he would cross and finish. Put that in the box and play some of those crosses. Cuevas comes on, all of a sudden the crosses come in again. It's almost instantaneous as soon as Cuevas comes on. I thought another down point for the LA Galaxy in this particular case was Julian Aude, who was playing well, who was running all over the place, who had provided a couple really great key defensive plays, and then not only that, but progressed the ball forward and created some energy and some optimism during the play, and the Galaxy ran it out. When he comes out, I think the Galaxy also suffer. And so that's a problem. Watching Joseph Paintsill, as fast as he is, and he came and talked to us afterwards, as fast as he is, watching him get caught running down the middle of the field, I don't understand how that happens, unless he's not running as fast as we think he's running. Because he was played into space. He was all alone. He brought the ball across the center to cut off the defender, which is probably the right thing, but the defender caught him. So either it's a real fast defender, or Joseph Paintsill isn't running at top speed, and that's been a criticism of Greg Vanney this entire season, is that Joseph Paintsill is slowing down in his movements whenever he gets the ball. So watching the LA Galaxy struggle this much was painful to watch, doing it in the atmosphere in which it was done, in a quiet, mostly lifeless atmosphere. When the goal was scored, it's raucous, right? But all the spots and moments in between, it's quiet. And it was real quiet. And 16,000 people, like I said, on a Wednesday night, you usually get anywhere between 18 and 22. So the 16's low. It's low for me. We'll see what happens whenever the LA Galaxy play in Leagues Cup, which will be the next home games coming up. But we'll watch how that goes. It was a chance for the Galaxy to do something, and they fell flat, which if we're trying to be... listen, Gary, by the way, $2 Super Chat says, the Galaxy sucks so bad, it's incredible. Yes, they do. We can all agree now, all right? The Galaxy are not a good team. Are they as bad as last place in the Western Conference? They shouldn't be. But they're certainly earning that moniker right now, all right? So trying to stay out of that, basement with Montreal and the battle for the wooden spoon, you would think that they'd be able to create that. But the schedule for the LA Galaxy doesn't get easy. It gets easier. It gets harder. The Galaxy go away to LAFC on Saturday. That's games at 7:30 p.m. We'll preview that here in a second. And then it's away to Houston, which is not going to be an easy game. So good luck with that one, right? July 31st, the LA Galaxy will then host Tijuana in Leagues Cup, and then you get your Leagues Cup games, so 3 Leagues Cup games, rapid fire, everything right behind the other one. And then the Galaxy will host Seattle. If you watched any Seattle's game, they were up 3-0. I think did it finish 3-3? I know Colorado came back and made it 3-3. But a wild and wacky one. Miami lost over the midweek as well, with Cincinnati beating them, I think 3-0. So there's some crazy things that are going on with the entire league right now. And the Galaxy could have had a chance to sort of use that craziness to their advantage, because when things don't go the way that everybody expects it to, that's usually the time when teams can sort of take advantage of that. And we didn't see that. I don't know that there were real solid performances by any single player for the LA Galaxy on the night. And again, that's pretty disappointing whenever you look at everything that has been going on. If we go over our charts, we can see that the LA Galaxy's designated players almost at 50% now, 60% for Joseph Paintsill in terms of the total available minutes, and Gabriel Peck 86% in terms of the total available minutes. The Galaxy now have a winning percentage of 13%. They've lost over 60% of their games and gotten a point or better less than 40% of the time. So a big change from last year and everything that's going on. The home points, still the most that they're getting, obviously. They're averaging about 1.0 points per game at home. Their average across their entire lifetime is 1.65 points per game at home. So they're underperforming at home by more than half a point, right? So by 0.65. The away record doesn't it's not good. I joked around every 3 games right now. So the LA Galaxy at 0.33 points per game on the road. Every 3 games, the LA Galaxy are getting 1 point on the road. That's what that's averaging out to be. So the Galaxy have to play 3 games on the road in order to get just a single point. So I wouldn't get my hopes up for the trip to on Saturday, right? Just hasn't seen it. That being said, again, don't count out on El Trafico. Form means nothing. Just 15 total points on the season. We can see it there. The Galaxy were on this meteoric rise that was going to get them within touching distance of one of their other bad seasons. They fall just short of that, and now they will be playing the chasing game. One of the goals of this season should be for the LA Galaxy not to be the worst LA Galaxy team ever. And right now that's 2007 through 23 games at 18 points. The LA Galaxy currently have 15, so they are a full 3 points behind where they need to be in order to stay above that. The crazy thing is that 2007 is eventually going to go away. All right, so you can go starting through at 2010, 2011, whenever they started playing the 34 games. You can start to see where that is. So the next lowest one is 2017. 2017 had a total of 23 points through 23 games, so 1.0 points per game. This LA Galaxy team well under that right now at 0.65, I believe, points per game. And we'll look at that chart here in a second. But that means that the LA Galaxy are a full 8 points behind 2017, and that's a gap they're going to have to close as 2017 sort of wraps up and heads in that direction. Okay. Again, 34-point seasons, 34-game season is where we're at now, and some of those seasons before, I think 2010, 2011, is where you're going to see that drop off, and they did not play a full 34 games, so those will go away. 0.65 points per game right now is the absolute lowest in LA Galaxy history, the lowest that they ever finished at the end of a season was at 0.94 points per game in 2017. You can look at 1.0 in 2020, but remember they only played 22 games, right? So that's something there. Gary, by the way, $5 super chat says, this is for the I'd rather be at the train club t-shirt fund. Yeah. Sometimes I'd rather be there. Certainly. I always enjoy going to the games. I always enjoy seeing people. So that's never the case in terms of, I love watching live soccer, Gary. It's absolutely one of the most amazing games. And even whenever we see something like a stinker like this, it's still a wonderful place to be. Looking at the LA Galaxy and scoring goals, 25 goals for, 45 goals against. We can predict that out for the 23 games that they played so far. That means after 34 games, we're expecting the LA Galaxy to have scored 37 goals, which is ticking up. I will say it is ticking up. 37 goals. And defensively, they're going to give up 66.5 goals, which is ticking down. Both of those things are sort of in there. So 2023 at 67. In terms of the goals given up, and right now we're predicting 66.5, so 67, so really 2023. Damian Calhoun goes, this year reminds me of 2023. Starting to feel that now as we enter into these this last stages of things. Let's see. The LA Galaxy, in terms of their games per month, 5 games in July. They played 3, 2-1-0 so far. 2 more games still left to be played. Both away games at LAFC, at Houston. The LA Galaxy currently having their best month of the season, but it would be pretty hard to be worse. This scoring first and scoring second. This is another game in which the LA Galaxy allowed the first goal. They have now been outscored 31-12 when they allow the first goal and are 0-11-5. The Galaxy without a win whenever they allow the first goal. If you want a precursor and a predictor for what could happen at El Trafico, Galaxy better score first. That's the only way that they're setting themselves up for possibly a win. Plus, the Galaxy haven't won a road game yet. So that's a chance for them to win a road game whenever it's just up the road. We'll get that as well. And then I think we've already talked about the schedule, but we sort of float into there. And there are some home games loaded into this schedule. Home against Seattle in terms of league play, home against Colorado, home against Dallas, right? So August will end into a pretty good, league run here. But they also, in between there, they have to go to Miami and play against Messi and friends on August 16th. Right? Really interesting game. Again, where are the LA Galaxy going to be with that? Is that going to get ugly? Traveling all the way across the country, it certainly has the condition to do so. 46 points for Philadelphia currently in the Eastern Conference. San Diego at 42 points in that Western Conference. So San Diego is the pacer out west. Vancouver is just 1 point behind. Minnesota, who just lost to LAFC, we'll talk about that here in a second, is just in that third spot. But LAFC at 1.75 points per game should jump above Minnesota. They still have 3 games in hand. So we'll watch how that plays out. They will have a lot of games to play down the stretch, LAFC. But having said that, the Galaxy actually have to get themselves into position into like the 12th, 11th spot if they're even going to think about possibly peeking into the playoffs. And having said that, I feel more stupid just for saying it. So that's where we're at. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to switch into this LAFC game, and then we're probably going to get done a little early. One is I was up late last night, obviously, with the game, so I didn't get home till about 12:30. So that's weighing on me. I also have family in town, so I'd like to make sure that this room can get used as well. So let's go ahead and look a little bit at LAFC and this game. There is, we'll give you the timing on it. It is El Trafico. This is the second meeting of these two teams. It's LAFC hosting the LA Galaxy. 7:40 p.m. is your kickoff. That's on MLS Season Pass on Saturday, July 19th. All right. So for those of you going to BMO, please be safe. All right. We got asked a question in here because we know that the supporters groups, certainly the Victoria Block, are not going to be traveling to the game. They put out a statement. Victoria Block will officially not attend LAFC away Saturday, July 19th, 2025, in solidarity with those who can't attend. They say the lack of help that AEG and LA Galaxy has not provided to the city of Los Angeles, the lack of communication on security for our members attending home and away due to immigration raids. Those are the reasons for not attending. And so similar reasons, again, for them not being in the stadium and launching a protest at the game against Austin as well. So I don't think that was unexpected for them not to go, but that's the official word there. And again, as I've said before, and I can state, continuously, is that I can understand the position that they've been put in, and I understand the response. Adam asks, can I get your thoughts of no supporters traveling to BMO? It seems like more and more the Galaxy are losing supporters little by little, like season ticket members. Certainly. We've certainly seen the social media posts out there showing people who have canceled their season tickets. It's not, is it 100,000? Is it 100 people who did it? I don't know. We don't see all those posts, but you can certainly tell it's probably in, more double digits at least. And if that's representative of the larger, then yeah, the LA Galaxy are hurting there. Dan Beckerman, AEG president, was at the Austin game. So he's been at many games before, but I physically saw him, which is why I reported it. So he's been there at the games as well. So, I don't think anybody could walk into that stadium on Wednesday night and say that you didn't notice that the supporters weren't there. The bad play doesn't help. Quite honestly, even if the Galaxy were great right now, I'm not sure it would help. This is a difficult situation, and I think the time has sort of passed for the LA Galaxy to make an announcement now. I mean, I can say it's never too late, but it feels like it's too late on all that. So if they don't feel safe going, if they're trying to prove a point by not going, then that makes sense. So how does that sort of end up with this game? Very interesting to see, because certainly with the away support that's usually there at El Trafico, they're there. Certainly with the again, I will say it felt like a library sometimes. I felt bad for talking loudly in the press box. It felt like, somebody was going to come shush me at the game there. If that is, it won't be similar, because certainly LAFC fans are going to be there and that stadium will be rocking and ready to go, right? But having said that, usually there's a counter to that. Usually the two opposing groups create a loud din that rumbles through everything. And if there's not that response, how do the players take it? How did the players respond when it was quiet on Wednesday night? Quiet response from the LA Galaxy in terms of how they played. Are the two related? I don't know. It certainly seems like they are. So we look at this game. This is an LAFC team that had a Club World Cup break, that still has 3 games in hand on most of these teams, and has recently come off of 2 games, certainly against Dallas and then against Minnesota, in which they get victories thanks in large part to penalty kicks, right? And that is part of their game. Let's be very clear. You get Denny Bouanga running inside of the penalty box at full speed, he's going to cause problems, right? And that's going to be an Amiro Garces problem. Amiro's going to have to deal with that. And then all the chaos that comes around that is also part of it, because with Bouanga running, certainly it causes problems, and then other people get open. It's the domino effect. He's going to put pressure on the defense. And this LA Galaxy defense, so far, looking pretty soft in those areas, right? But Amiro Garces has played some good physical games recently, and so now you look at that. certainly looking at whenever Beneteke came in and how Garces and Yoshida played against that, similar in terms of stature, not similar in terms of speed. But you're talking about a Miro Garces, who's one of the fastest defenders in the world, from what we know, that he has a chance to be able to isolate and minimize Bouanga. But you can go into the midfield. I know people aren't going to want to hear this, but Mark Delgado in there, a rock this year. Absolutely a rock for them. You can look at the ratings, and he's in the low 7s in terms of season ratings, right? And then Tillman right beside him, playing a lot of those. So you can see that LAFC has a really strong midfield, and that really strong midfield is going to test and push and pull the LA Galaxy. Trying to make sure that Diego Fagundes has to play a little bit more defense, so he's not going to be able to cheat up as much. He's going to be more of the 8 box to box. You're going to have Cerrillo in there, who's going to be your 6, and then Marco Reus is going to try to play higher up the field so that way he can release. The formula for LAFC has changed a little bit this year in terms of they like to play with some possession, but they're still looking for sort of the counter, and they're still looking for the mistakes. So they're going to press, and they're good at pressing. They will cause problems, and whenever they cause problems, that usually leads to goals, right? So when they take chances, they usually convert them. Are they invincible? They're not, and we've seen that they are susceptible to defensive breaks, similar to the LA Galaxy, and they have some defensive issues, right? But having said that, we talked about the talent gap between the LA Galaxy and Austin, and said, the Galaxy have probably better players than Austin. Austin played better as a team, and it showed. And the Galaxy looked like they were individuals out there playing. LAFC has a very good team. My history on this is that I very rarely pick the LA Galaxy to win. The last time I picked the LA Galaxy to win in El Trafico was the last regular season game that they played against them last year. And it was one of those that I had picked the win in that game months earlier. It was sort of like, this is how this is going to set up. You could sort of see how it was going to go. And so that one was easy. The question is going to be, can the LA Galaxy win this game? Absolutely, because it's Major League Soccer, right? So that's easy to do. The bigger question, though, is if the LA Galaxy don't play well, and if the LA Galaxy can't find their connections, get Paintsel, get Peck, get Royce involved. And remember, the last time these two teams played, it was a 2-2 draw. And Marco Reus had both of the goals for the LA Galaxy, including the 87th minute free kick that ended up tying this game, right? So if things go poorly in this game could get out of hand. This could be a 4-1 win for LAFC. This could be, larger numbers, 3-0, that type of thing, if things get out of hand. So it will be important for the LA Galaxy, and absolutely, This is simple, but it's true. They have to score first. The LA Galaxy have to score first if they want to be in this. The only thing I'll say is that if they don't score first, but they react quickly if a goal is scored and they tie it up quickly, you can survive like that. I'm not sure you can win like that, but you can survive that way, right? You're going to get a Miro Garces in there. We're going to see I honestly, with the way that I thought the offense was playing and the quickness that they were able to play through Julian Aude on that left-hand side and that type of thing, if he is injured and can't play in the LAFC game, and Greg didn't know anything, and it was all initial stuff, so we don't have an update on that, and I doubt they're going to give us one before the game. If Aude can't play, then it feels to me like the LA Galaxy have to be too defensive. They have to be too set back. That being said, John Nelson was a good part and a big part of what the LA Galaxy did last year, but they had more offense last year. And so I'm just worried that without Aude out there, you're not going to get that offense. John Nelson can get forward. He showed it in this game. He tried. He got into some positions, but he's really looking for Joseph Paintsel to be able to take off and play with stuff, and so far we haven't seen that from Paintsel. So it's not pretty, by the way, if you're looking at the betting lines on this. The Galaxy have a 16.1% chance of winning this game. 20.2% on the draw, and 63.6% chance of LAFC winning this game. To me, this is like open and shut. You don't bet on this one. If you wanted to, the money line has the Galaxy at plus 375. That's when it opened, but in some places you can find right now at plus 515. So if you're going to play the upset and put a little bit down and try to get a lot more out of it, that's maybe the play. the drop plus 340 is certainly there as well. But I mean, projected goals, they have LAFC up over 2 and the LA Galaxy under 1. So, where is this LA Galaxy team right now? I'll be honest. There's times when you can say, oh, there's hope. Had they beaten Austin, you would sit there and go, they're on a roll, and that momentum could carry into the LAFC game. Still would have thought it was a difficult game. But when they're capable of, and you hope that they had outgrown it, but when they're capable of laying the egg that we saw on Wednesday night, and only till at the end did they finally tick into place and get it, I don't know how many times you can put the ball in front of Gabriel Peck and Joseph Paintsel and watch them miss it, and then have everybody believe that the balls are going to go in. Marco Royce certainly is a force to be reckoned with, and as shown by the last time, the last El Trafico, he can have an impact all himself. But yeah, you're going to need to see the LA Galaxy do something. Quite honestly, have a game in completion that they haven't had this year against a foe that seems to be rounding more into form. Again, 2 penalty kicks in the last 2 games for them have sort of helped decide that. They've had some red cards recently for the other team as well, but and quite honestly, that's what good teams do. They cause you to make problems. The breaks are going their way this year. And if that continues, they could be the Western Conference, leader out of that. They're not there right now, mostly probably due to the games in hand. But they're in 4th right now, and with 3 games in hand, they have a possible 9 points. You could put them at the 35, and they'd be at 44 points right now. And that could get them in. Games in hand don't equal wins, but there's the potential for that, certainly. The 1.75 points per game shows them at least in 3rd and not in 4th. But the Galaxy are at 0.65 right now. So it is, at some point you become your record. And the LA Galaxy may have had that, by the way, I was almost going to say the pumpkin burst or the carriage turned back into a pumpkin, like the LA Galaxy were some Cinderella team coming in here. They've just been a bad team. And I think we've had little hints and glints that the LA Galaxy could be better, but we haven't seen that in total. So if you're asking me for a scoreline, I'm going to give it 3-1 LAFC. The Galaxy lose that game, they're going to have to regroup and then come back against Houston before they then get ready for Leagues Cup. And Leagues Cup is not a lock. Leagues Cup schedule is difficult, just in terms of the amount of games and how quickly they're played. And if you're going to do that, then the Mexican clubs are certainly going to get more of the benefit of the doubt on those, because I believe that the Liga MX teams have more depth than MLS teams. So as the tournament rolls, I believe it's going to be Liga MX that's going to rise to the top of that. But let's see how that plays out, because this is a chance for the LA Galaxy to do something. Still have Campeones Cup coming up, but at least in my mind, losing to Austin really did take any little tiny bit of wind out of the sails of the LA Galaxy. It felt like a long shot anyway, right? But I don't know. Sometimes, like whenever you see an action hero jumping for the ledge or jumping for the rope on the helicopter, and at one point it's like, they're not going to make it, but maybe they will, and then they end up grabbing the rope. That sort of felt like the LA Galaxy is like, maybe I see them in the air. It doesn't look like they're going to make it, but maybe they end up on the other side of that, hanging underneath the helicopter, swinging off the building. But in this case, I feel like they jumped and they're plummeting now more than anything. So that's what we got. We'll leave it at that. For right now. It was a poor performance against Austin. The atmosphere was quiet, and I think that if the supporters groups were trying to make their presence or lack of presence be known and felt across the LA Galaxy, I think it was known and felt. And I don't know how much effect that'll have at BMO, but I do believe that you'll notice it whenever it comes to time to see that game. So if you're headed up there again, please be careful. It's soccer. And nobody needs to get arrested for this stuff. So be careful whenever you head out there. Keep your head upon you. All right. Go enjoy the spectacle that is, an El Trafico. Always say everybody should do it. And that's sort of where we'll leave it at that. Maybe the Galaxy will surprise everybody. And if they surprise people, we'll be back here and saying, I believe again, that type of thing. Back and forth until they're mathematically eliminated. That's how it goes. Just a reminder, coming up on Sunday, the LA Galaxy Star Squad, including my favorite friend, Cosmo, will be out at the Orange County Model Engineers. the organization of which I'm a part, at Fairview Park in Costa Mesa. The MLS Cup Trophy will be there on Sunday at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. That's the only times they'll be there. So our trains start running at 10 a.m. We run all the way to 3:30 p.m. both days, Saturday and Sunday. So please feel free to come out there. But Cosmo and the Star Squad will just be there on Sunday from 10 to 12. All right. That's what we got. It was good seeing everybody at the game. Always nice to have a little Wednesday meetup and say hello. It wasn't the best result, and now we have to sort of look at where the LA Galaxy are and whether or not they can come back from any of this. All right. So I think that about does it. LA Galaxy taking on LAFC in El Trafico at BMO Stadium, and that is coming up at 7:30 on Saturday. Kickoff is at 7:40 p.m. All right. If you're looking for me on any of the socials, it's at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Of course, our YouTube channel, Spotify, SoundCloud, any of those places is where you can find our podcast. I appreciate everybody hanging in there for a solo show. I know a little shorter than normal. Hopefully your commutes on a Friday are still good to go, and we'll get you all set and back on Monday night with the Panda, and we'll tell you what happened over the weekend. All right, so that about does it. Hope everybody's safe. Have a safe weekend. We'll see you back on Monday. For everybody here at Corner of the Galaxy, I'm Josh Guesman. You've been listening to our little Corner of the Galaxy. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.